Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Good Faith Gaming. I am your host, Ben, and today we're doing an episode about things I've been playing and things I've been enjoying. And before I get started today, YouTube has revealed this new feature called Hype. And Hype is supposed to help smaller YouTube channels like my own kind of get a little bit more momentum and discoverability. And so if you don't mind, clicking the hype button somewhere down below and giving me some hype so more people can see my videos, I would greatly appreciate it. First game I've been playing and I'm still currently playing is DLC for a game that released a few years back, and I really loved the base game. And so I was excited to see this game was getting a DLC a few years later. And this is a Switch 2 game, and this is Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and the DLC is called Fallen Stars. And what is this DLC? Well, it's about 8 new levels, and they're like additions to the currently existing levels, which doesn't sound super exciting, but when you play these levels, you start to realize that they're more like challenge levels, and I think the challenge is perfect here. I've played 4 so far, and they're just a lot of fun to go through. They're not a breeze like some of the other Kirby levels. And with this DLC, you're also getting an upgrade for the base game. It runs at 60 frames a second now versus 30 on the Switch 1. And I'll be honest with you, I cannot tell that big of a difference because this game ran so well on the Switch 1. And so I'm having a hard time noticing if this is 60 or not. With the original Switch version, I couldn't even tell if it was 30 or 60. Like, the wizards at Nintendo just really did a great job with that game. I will say, it's a $20 DLC. I think it's a little steep for what you're getting. I would have rather seen the performance upgrades be free and the DLC be about $10. But we're dealing with Nintendo here. They're going to charge what they charge. And if you're a Kirby and Forgotten World fan like me, it's well worth it. And the next game is a cozy game that I picked up. And I haven't actually gotten to it yet, but my daughter has put quite a few hours into it, and she really likes it. And that is Story of Seasons: The Grand Bazaar. The Switch 2 so far is the cozy game platform. They got Story of Seasons, you got Rune Factory, and Fantasy Life I. And so the Switch 2 is the cozy game console right now. And so I want to check this out when I get a little time. This next game I played and completed, and I will say that I really like video game history. It's something I value and it's something I like learning more about. And so if you're the type of person who likes that, this next game will be right up your alley. This one came out last year, and it's from our friends at Digital Eclipse. And this game is basically a museum piece, and there's a lot of games within it. But of course I'm talking about Tetris Forever. This game it's like an interactive museum where there's videos, there's interviews with the guy who invented Tetris, and then the guy who pulled Tetris out of Russia and brought it to Japan and thus the rest of the world. The thing that is great about this is the people who are in it are all super charming. All the interviews I just couldn't get enough of. There are also like 20 different versions of Tetris in this game. I am not the biggest Tetris guy. I've played a little bit, especially the very first version of Tetris that they have. But even if you're not a big Tetris person, this game is awesome just from a historical document standpoint. So I'm really glad they made this when they did. They didn't wait any longer. It is the 30th anniversary of Tetris, I believe. But all these guys are still alive. They're still super charming and awesome to talk to. I do wish that they got the rights for the original Game Boy Tetris in this game. It's like the biggest omission because they spend like a whole chapter talking about that game. And I also wish that they included a copy of Black Onyx on here because Hank Rogers, who's a big part of this story, he is the designer and developer of Black Onyx, and that is essentially what brought RPGs to Japan. And so that's a game I've always wanted to play, even just for a little bit to check out because it's so historical. But maybe they'll do a documentary about him and his life at some point. All right, this next game is a game that is just shy of being 20 years old. I believe it'll be 20 in 2028. And it has been a blind spot for me since its release. And I decided that it was time to play it. And so I have my PS3 still hooked up. and so I decided to pop in Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. This game definitely lived up to expectations. It is, I will say, it is Kojima at what I believe is his most indulgent, but the story that is here is mostly really good. A lot of people treat this game like it was forced, like it tied up loose ends that didn't really need to be tied up. And I kind of feel the opposite about it. I feel like Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3 were leading to this game, especially 3. It was really cool to see what I consider like the climax of this series. Of course, we got Metal Gear Solid 5 and we got Peace Walker, but this feels like the natural bookend of the original Metal Gear trilogy. I liked the boss designs. The fights themselves were okay, but I liked the whole Beauty and the Beast idea. It was really cool. And I also think it's funny how Kojima, I guess slight spoilers for this and some of the Death Stranding games, but I think it's funny how he ends his games with fistfights. And so it's just a thing I've noticed that he likes to do. It's a good game. Would I recommend it playing on PS3? I assume that they're gonna port it next year to the PS5, and so it would be worth waiting. I don't think this game needs that much work if they just up-resed it and maybe fix some of like the shadow glitches that are in this game, and of course the frame rate, because this game chugged at certain places. I think it was uncapped up to 60, but most of the time this game is not anywhere close to that. If you look at like a wall, it'll run at 60. I will also say the gameplay itself is, it's okay. Like, it's not my favorite Metal Gear as far as gameplay goes. It does follow more in the footsteps of 2 more than 3, where I felt like 3 is more of a sandbox, and this one, you know, you have these small areas that you have to get from point A to point 2, and you can go through using stealth, or you can use violence, you can put people to sleep. And so it did feel like classic Metal Gear in that regard, but I feel like with 3 and then with 5, they broke open the formula, and I appreciate that level of sandbox more. The next game I played and finished was the demo for Trails in the Sky First Chapter, and I could not get enough of this game. I actually played it on Switch and PlayStation 5 because I wanted to see the graphical differences and all that. And I will say it's clear that PlayStation 5 looks better. Like the foliage is denser, there's a high frame rate mode, there is not decimated animations in the background of enemies like there is in the Switch version. However, with the Switch version, I played this on the Switch 2, and it looks and runs really good, like for a Switch 1 file running on Switch 2. However, it's not the Switch 2 version, and so I'm curious to see what they will do to improve the Switch 2 version, and if it will be closer to the PS5 version. And I hope it is, especially with the foliage and decimated animation, but also like the shadows on the Switch 1 version are really weak. And so I'm hoping that we get a modest update for the Switch 2 version, because that's where I want to play it. I want to be able to play it in bed, but you know, we'll see what happens. The last game I am playing right now is a game I've played for about 70 hours so far this year, but now is the time for me to beat it before Trails comes out, and that is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I am just hanging out in Kuttenberg right now. I have decided I'm gonna mainline the story, because apparently I'm only halfway through. It's just one of those games where, a lot like Breath of the Wild, it feels like the game is apathetic to if I'm playing it or not. I know that kind of sounds weird, but it's not like calling to me like I have to play more of this. But when I do sit down and play it, it is so immersive that I just fall in love. And so I have to remember that when I'm playing this game, and I do like it a lot. And I plan on beating it here in the next couple of weeks. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is an awesome game. All right, and for the last thing I am going to talk about today, this is not video game related, it's book related. But I have been feeling called to read. You know, I got a bunch of history books and stuff sitting on my shelf, but sometimes those can not be like exactly relaxing, or, you know, it's more like my brain has to remain on for it. The well-written ones, you can enter a flow state, but that's not all of them. And so I wanted like a fantasy world. And so, you know, I watched several YouTubers, and one of them was recommending, you know, he said, if you like Star Wars, then maybe check out Warhammer. And I was looking at Warhammer. I want to do digital because I just got bookshelves full of books here, and I don't want to like start a new series and get like 100 new books. So I was like, let me do digital books. I was looking at Warhammer, and they're not easily accessible. Like I got a Kindle app, and they're not on there to purchase. You have to go through like a different, you have to go through their website for them. But also, they were like $15 a pop, which to me is a little expensive for a digital book. Like $10 to me is a sweet spot. And so then I was like, maybe not Warhammer, maybe Forgotten Realms, because I don't have any experience with that world besides like the little bit of Baldur's Gate 3 that I've played. And so I was looking at some recommendations for that. One was like called Homeland, which is R.A. Salvatore, supposed to be really good. But then I remembered my wife had these books from whenever she was in high school, and they're still here. And I went to, I was looking at them, and I asked chat, is this a good starting point? Apparently it's the best starting point because it's this author's first book within this world. And it's like starting with episode 4, Star Wars, and then like watching the original, then going back to the prequels, which to me is fine. Like I like reading stuff in chronological order. Right now I'm reading The Crystal Shard by R.A. Salvatore. I am just a little bit into the book, a few chapters, but I will say that I'm hooked. And there's a lot of nouns that you have to learn starting off. So like I'm reading very slowly, so I can like sound out these foreign names, bizarre names, but once you get over that little bit of a hump, it's not that big of a hump. His writing style is very fluid, and so I'm really into this book so far. He paints really good pictures. He's setting up like the political landscape and all that stuff. So it's really exciting. I like this type of world building, and so I'm excited to read the entire trilogy. But yeah, do you have any experience with R.A. Salvatore? If you do, let me know in the comments below. That's the end of this video. I am very much looking forward to the new Hollow Knight game that comes out later today when I'm recording this. And so hopefully the next one of these videos I can talk about Silk Song, which I'm pretty pumped for. But I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, have a good day.